Brothers and sisters, good morning. It's wonderful to be here with you. The one thing I want to point out to you is something that won't be quite so obvious. There is no separation between you and me. The distinctions that you might see from another country, another color, things that might just have been read to you amount to this much. Fingers touching, I'm putting here. This much difference. What we are together, this much. It's huge. Why? Because we are all children of a divine Father who loves us all and provides to us all the things we need to be successful in our spiritual growth and in the things that we must of necessity do in this world. There are many challenges that we see, and we'll deal with those. The one thing that's important, though, is just the thing I mentioned. If we're that close together, why are we having so many challenges? Now, obviously, in this group, we're not having any challenges, really. But in terms of the world at large, we have a responsibility to go forth and do the best we can to see that peace takes place first wherever we are, and then wherever we can reach. It sounds like a big job. It's not a big job. It's just being your true spiritual self. So what do we have to do? Do we have to struggle and strain for this? No. But knowing this makes it clear that we're not up against an impossible task. We're up against a task. I love what St. Francis of Assisi, I know you're all familiar with him, but we think of him about the birds and the animals and this noble spirit and all that. But he was also a very practical man. And one of the things he said about taking on a project, he says, first, take on the necessary. So whatever we're doing in our lives, and by the way, all of this will serve a purpose for peace in the long haul. Because our individual consciousness, our thinking, our behavior impacts what we're putting out there to the rest of the world. We're here today, by the way, by divine ordination. This is not an accident. That's point number one. There are no accidents. You're here for a reason, and it may be you think just because your professor said you better get over there or you're going to be in a lot of trouble. You're here for a reason. There is one thing that you're going to pick up today from someone, not me necessarily, from someone that will help you be, first of all, a better person, and secondly, more effective in helping others. Because the one thing that is also true, if you would have any happiness or any solitude, any sense of togetherness in your life, we must seek and find a way to be a service to others. This doesn't necessarily mean you have to lead the parade. You've got certain people that are ordained to lead the parade. Some of them are doing it that don't even want to, really. But they know that's their calling. So I think through prayer and meditation, it is important that you seek your calling and know that you are guided. You are divinely guided. The reason that's important is it takes a little bit of the heat off you. You don't have to think, oh my gosh, it's all on me, it's all on my shoulders. I must perform. I must do it. What you need to do, really, suit up, show up, do the best you can with what you've got, where you are. All of this results in a better you. Your interaction with other people create happier, better people, better, happier people that don't see all these magnificent, huge chasms between us, are able to work towards world peace, which is, of course, the purpose of this conference, is to discuss that issue. It is available. It is possible. It will happen. It is happening just in what Father Etta is doing right now throughout the world. One of the things that I thought was quite interesting when I reviewed some of Father Etta's writings is that in his basic function, for what he's doing, he has a very practical approach. peace model calls for practical, effective charity. What are things? He talks about the goal up front. Peace. We want peace. Peace is our natural condition, despite all the appearances to the contrary. We're mostly fighting over things that are too important. Those things that are important can and must be resolved, because the net result is that you're all losers. If you've ever noticed in all the wars that have been fought, who really ultimately loses after a period of time? It's almost always the victor. Look at all the wars my country has unfortunately been involved in. The losers almost came out better than we did. It also damages you spiritually to be killing each other. We can't do this. Not just because it's wrong, but because it does not work. In Father Etta's peace model, practical, effective charity, I read that and I thought, this man is a regular Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, of course, is an entrepreneur in the United States who's made billions and lives in a little small house that he bought in 1952 with his wife, and almost everything he has is going to go to charitable causes. So he understands this connection, that his successes are not his successes, but merely gifts given him by the Creator. And it's important to know that whatever gift we're given, that's 100%. That's 100% gift. The important thing is for us to do is to acknowledge it, to recognize it. Do not diminish your own capacity. You have great things to do, and it may look like those things don't have anything to do with world peace, but in fact they do. A peaceful, harmonious person is a contributor to world peace. The one thing I loved about this practical model, I like things that are practical, because again, there is no separation. There's no separation not only between you and me, but there's no separation, period. We are a spark from the creative source, which is God our Father. We will be guided and protected by that source. We can use that source for good. This power in the universe, this God consciousness, is available to us. It's not something there to control us and that we've got to behave and do everything right. Our Creator says you can do anything you want, as long as you're willing to pay the price. And I think all of us, even those that have gotten on the right track from one that may not have been so perfect, have worked very diligently, not really to do something because we think we have to do it, because we want to do it. We want to do it. We know we are guided and protected always. The other thing that I talked earlier about St. Francis, you start what is the most necessary. The next thing we do is approach what's possible. And the next thing we do is simply to affirm that all these things are accomplished, because from there, once we do the possible, we will find out we're floating in and doing the impossible. I think if Father Eder had really looked at what he had in mind in the beginning, he would probably very pleasantly surprised at how far this has progressed, because he's coming from a powerful consciousness of righteousness and goodness. I can't do something to you without doing something to me. The Bible, it says, with all thy getting, get understanding. Get understanding. How do we do that? Just what I said. Suit up, show up, do the best you can with what you've got, where you are. You will then be redirected and guided from the divine light that will shine upon you. We're never alone. We're never alone. And in this particular journey, on this plane of expression, you want to understand that my good already is, and that this interconnection, yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. This interconnection is a good thing, not to be feared, but rather to be nourished. We are meant to be interconnected. We are meant to help each other. How How would it feel if we didn't have all the apparent differences, which really don't count for anything? Life would be pretty dull, wouldn't it? Even people that annoy the heck out of you, there's something about it that makes you feel alive when you observe it. And everybody is my teacher. Some people are teaching me what to do, and others are teaching me what not to do. On this issue of world peace, though, that's Father Etta is doing just exactly what St. Francis would do. Start with the necessary, get something in structure, get something in place that can be used, which he has done, and let that mature. Again, diligently pursuing it, attracting like souls to you in order to accomplish it, and doing it in a way that works in this kind of worldly setting that we're in. Because the appearances of separation, as I said, are not real. But there are certain realities. There are conditions that we must deal with in order that are very much in the physical plane. It's my firm conviction that we are not just human beings getting along here with our spiritual connection with God, but that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. As such, we are empowered to take our own level of consciousness and put that out for good. And if we do that, we can be helpful. When you start with basics, you can move on from there. The thing I love about the words in the peace model, Father, is that it's practical. We're talking about practical, real world stuff. We're talking about effective stuff. And we're talking about charity, giving. We're talking about giving from the heart, giving to accomplish a greater goal. It's not just about giving somebody a bowl of rice when they need it. It's about spiritual nourishment. Because if there's one thing that's clear here in this world, there is a definite necessity for a dramatic change in consciousness. If we keep thinking the way we've been thinking and doing what we've been doing, we of course are going to keep getting what we have been getting, and it's not very pretty. But it doesn't have to be that way. And no matter what's going on, remember to always maintain your sense of humor, your sense of dignity, your sense of enjoyment. Get together and laugh. This spiritual thing, by the way, that we have in our churches and just in life generally, is not there to kind of make us robots. It's to nourish us and be happy. God never designed for us to be unhappy. We need to learn lessons, and that's why we're here, to learn lessons. When it comes to things down the road, but practical, effective for charity. If it's not effective, you got to go back and revisit it. And we have to remember that we may be spiritual beings, and we are spiritual beings, but we operate in this very material world with all its vagaries. His Holiness Pope Pius X, who reigned just into the last century. This, you wouldn't think this would be coming from somebody in that era, the level, but this is a man that obviously had a level of consciousness. He said, it is absurd to seek peace while rejecting God. For when God is left out, justice is left out. When justice is lacking, there can be no hope of peace. In how many areas of the world do we find justice lacking? All over. Sometimes it's done out of maliciousness and selfishness. Selfishness, self-centeredness is the root of all our problems. Selfishness, self-centeredness is the root of all our problems. So that's something that isn't working, right? When something isn't working, we do something new. We do something new. And I think that many of you who have certain things in mind will be surprised at what happens later in life. I certainly never intended to be doing anything like I'm doing now. It was not on my radar. Not at all. So what we have to do is remain open at the top. Be willing to change. Be willing to receive new information. Be willing to evaluate information. And when on the lower level, when all this stuff is going that prevents peace goes on, we have to understand that there will always be differences. Differences don't mean that there can't be peace. Some pieces, a lot of them, are just due to a lack of understanding. A lack of understanding the other person's positions. Some are a little more heavy duty. When they do come up on a more heavy duty scale, well, what do we do with it? We deal with it. Whatever goes on in life that isn't working, we work to fix it. How do you fix it? It depends. Circumstances dictate. Maybe nothing is the best thing to do till everybody cools down and you can start talking about where's the solution. Then you start looking, what are the commonalities? Just as I said when I opened my opening comments, there's really no separation between us. The apparent differences are just not important. They don't mean anything. In essence, we are the same spiritual being. So when those things can get resolved, we should be working to do that. And everybody's going to have an opportunity to do that. Because revolutions and a lot of conflict on a large scale doesn't happen unless there's a lot of it on a small scale. These things don't spring up out of nowhere. There's a reason for them. And we must always be looking to attacking the reason in a effective way. So the one thing I think that is important, no matter what religious background you come from, and as you can see, I have a very heavy Roman Catholic background. I also have looked deeply into other spiritual teachings. All of them are teaching the same thing. All of them are teaching the same thing. Connection with a higher power. Above all, what? Do the right thing. How do you know what the right thing is? You know. You know. If you don't, talk to trusted people. I'm always getting help. And by the way, I get help from the most unexpected places. And if you're listening, another thing to write down, if you're listening, you'll learn something. And I mean all the time. Sometimes somebody that you may not have a lot of respect for, thinks they don't know anything, starts talking, a pearl drops out of their mouth. An absolute pearl. So it's everywhere. But if I'm not listening, I'm not going to get the pearl. So who gets shortchanged? Me for not paying attention. We've got a lot of work to do. I think you can see this. But where does it begin? It all begins with me and you and you and you and you. And we don't have to do anything stupendous. We don't have to be a father in order to do our part in this equation. What we need to do is to utilize the gifts we can to create a peaceful atmosphere wherever we are. I'm not sure how I'm doing on the time. I have not been paying attention. Two is that when we're doing these things, we must always stay in principle. If we're staying in principle, we're consistent with all spiritual teaching. And I'm saying, don't just come from expediency. If we come from expediency and we get what we want right now, it will come back to haunt us. Because it will be out of sync with the infinite. And it will also make an implication on other individuals who are in sync with the infinite. And it will follow us a very long while. So we need to stay in principle, integrity, honesty. Things that are pretty obvious, things that you've all read. They come in the Ten Commandments. Start with that. The other thing to understand is that everything impacts everything else. So that I can't say, oh, it's not my problem, or no, I don't want to do that. I've got to do something. If nothing, just form a consciousness in support of. Sometimes I'm not emotionally maybe up to doing anything, but I can nonetheless put my word, speak my word to the universe. There's a synergy here. Synergy meaning a unity here. There's more powerful. The group of us together are more powerful than the parts. Coming together like this is empowering. This is the kind of thing that assists Father Ed and all the people working with him in this peace effort to do what they're doing. They can't do this alone. They can't do this alone. They're servants of the Father, just like the rest of us. But what a treasure. Anybody that thinks they want one of these jobs, get it. It's not all it sometimes appears to be. So what it means is that what we're to do is to be ourselves, be honest and true to ourselves, be honest and true and loving to all those in our, wherever we are, live by principle. See, these are so basic, so simple. The important things are not complicated. It's the interaction of circumstances and people that complicates it. So what you need to do if you're in those situations, pray for guidance. Father, I don't know what to do here. First thing you might do is talk, like Father Etta would do, is go talk to somebody that does know what they're doing on this area. Use a lot of common sense. Common sense is a spiritual trait, by the way. And it's sorely lacking in this world and has created many of the problems that we're facing today. We're not here to, and nor will our sense of peace be enhanced by finding something easy to do or finding something that is just going to make us a lot of money or put us in a position where there's a good deal of prestige connected with it. If you ever get to those positions, you will see how shallow those things are. Nothing wrong with them. They're nice to have, but they don't have substance to them. They don't have substance. The more you know, the more responsibility you have. And everybody here is well aware of that. Those that are coming from self-centeredness, they don't last. Those that are coming from a true sense of love do. Now, when we talk about love, that's not about getting easy with people and I love everybody. Yeah, we do, on one level. But what it means in your heart, that's where stuff goes on, in your heart. When this is coming on in your heart, that's where the power is. And when you have a feeling of love, have you ever felt bad when you had a feeling of love? No, correct? So it's important to have love in your heart. And if you don't have it there now, act as if. Pretend it's there. And see how it starts feeling. You might just get a little bit of it creeping in. And after a while, it will be there. And once it's in there, you will see how you start seeing so much more in the world and seeing so many opportunities to be of service. And in doing that, by the way, you always serve yourself, usually in more ways than one. You go in it not meaning to do it for any kind of a financial reward, and yet somewhere down the line, God provides something else that makes up for the fact that you spend so much time doing this other thing. So stop worrying about the stuff that's superficial, but be responsible about what you're doing. So when I say don't worry about things that are superficial, I'm not saying don't worry about the fact that you've got to study hard to get the degree you want to do what you want out there. Because if you can't do that, you won't be fulfilling your mission. And if you don't fulfill your mission, how are you going to feel about that? In Spanish, we have a lot of Spanish-speaking people in America. And one of their terms, I've also had a lot of association with unions. They have a term that they say, "Si se puede," yes, we can. And I say to you, yes, you can. And so begins the lesson. Thank you.